Today on Matt Walsh Show, we will do a deep dive into the situation in Nigeria where Christians are being persecuted by the thousands while American tax dollars are squandered by the billions. Also, we'll take a look at the case of an immigrant who's been on food stamps in this country for 30 years, 3 decades on the dole. Why are we allowing that to happen? And Michelle Obama has published a new book that is so on the nose, so perfectly narcissistic and shallow that you'll think I'm making it up, but I'm not, I promise you. Plus, Canada is so completely lost that now a third of kids in its public school system don't speak English. Talk about all that and more today on The Matt Walsh Show. You know, I'm an advocate of making informed decisions in day-to-day life. The same goes for making decisions about healthcare. It's open enrollment season, and insurance companies are betting you'll just auto-renew without asking questions. But you're smarter than that. If you're tired of overpriced premiums and confusing fine print, there is a better way. Crowd Health is a community where people fund each other's medical bills directly. No middlemen, no networks, no nonsense. Stop playing the insurance game and take control of your healthcare. With Crowd Health, you get healthcare coverage for under $100 a month. And that's not some bare bones plan with a million exceptions. That includes access to a dedicated team of health bill negotiators who fight on your behalf, discounted prescriptions and lab tests that actually save you money, and a vetted database of affordable, high-quality doctors handpicked by Crowd Health. If something major happens, you only pay the first $500, and the Crowd steps in to help fund the rest of your medical expenses. It's honestly what healthcare felt like before everything got overcomplicated by corporate middlemen, a real community of people who actually want to help each other with unexpected medical events. You're not just another policy number in some faceless corporation's database. So far, Crowd Health members have saved over $40 million in healthcare expenses because they simply refuse to overpay for care. The system is counting on you staying stuck in the same overpriced, overcomplicated mess year after year. Don't give them the satisfaction. This open enrollment, take your power back. Join Crowd Health to get started today for $99 for your first 3 months using code Walsh at joincrowdhealth.com. That's joincrowdhealth.com, code Walsh. Crowd Health is not insurance. Opt out. Take your power back. This is how we win. Joincrowdhealth.com. When the president announced that we might soon be taking sweet military action inside Nigeria, as he put it, in addition to cutting off all foreign aid to the country, he raised a lot of very urgent questions that need to be answered. And the first question, of course, is what exactly this sweet military action will look like. Nigeria doesn't have much in the way of anti-air technology, nor is their military capable of defeating LSU's football team, much less the U.S. Army. So the options are pretty much limitless on that front, especially if you're not a fan of the mercy rule or playing remotely fair. We could film the next Top Gun movie over West Africa in the next few weeks if we wanted to. And whatever you think of those movies, no serious person could test the fact that they featured some pretty sweet scenes. The other important question that's raised by Trump's remarks, as we briefly discussed yesterday, is why are we sending any foreign aid to Nigeria to begin with? Why is there any foreign aid to suspend? Now, when I asked that question yesterday, I genuinely had no idea what the answer was. I was aware of statistics showing that since 2021, we've been sending roughly $1 billion, yes, $1 billion every single year to Nigeria. And for the decade before that, we were giving them about $500 million every year. And most of that money is supposedly earmarked for humanitarian and economic purposes. And yet, if you look at the current state of Nigeria, it's not doing so well, despite receiving all that money from your checking account. It turns out that, according to the latest estimates from the United Nations Development Program, quote, 63% of persons living within Nigeria, 133 million people, are multidimensionally poor. Yes, you heard that correctly. 63% of Nigerians are multidimensionally poor. Now, this is not, despite what you may think and what I thought at first, a situation where Nigerians are so poor that they've entered another dimension. Apparently, according to the United Nations, being multidimensionally poor means that in addition to having no money, you also have poor health, poor education, poor living standards, poor sanitation, poor housing, and poor access to electricity. In other words, being multidimensionally poor means you're poor. And apparently it also means that you're entitled to billions of dollars from American taxpayers. And that's not all they've been receiving. Whether they exist in this dimension or not, Nigerians have also been receiving a very different kind of aid from the United States. It's not all humanitarian aid. They've also been receiving very expensive planes, which you can see right there. In 2017, the first Trump administration sold a dozen A-29 Super Tucano aircraft to Nigeria for $600 million on the theory that they'd be useful in the Nigerian government's fight against Boko Haram, the Islamist militant group. And the Super Tucanos are turboprop aircraft that are mainly used for close air support. Now, at the time, the Trump administration thought it would be a good idea to equip Nigeria's Air Force with these fighters because Boko Haram and other militant jihadi groups had been slaughtering Christians and burning down churches since 2009. And Nigeria's government clearly needed more firepower to deal with the insurgency. To be clear, though, it was not an idea that originated with the Trump administration. A year before the Trump administration completed the sale of the fighters, in 2016, the Obama administration had indicated that it was going to send those aircraft to Nigeria, but they backed out after Nigeria's military bombed a civilian refugee camp by mistake, killing 90 people. And then a few months later, the Trump administration took over and they completed the transaction. Now, in the end, Boko Haram was not defeated. Neither were other major Islamic militant groups in Nigeria. Several years after they obtained the planes from the U.S. military, the mass murder of Christians didn't stop in Nigeria, has not stopped. In fact, if anything, it's intensified. By some estimates, and I stress these are very rough estimates, probably vast undercounts, but still well over 24,000 Christians were killed in Nigeria from 2021 to 2025, while around 10,000 Christians were killed from 2017 to 2020. Every year, according to conservative estimates, at least 4,000 Christians are killed because of their faith in Nigeria, which would be more than every other country in the world combined. And many of these Islamist attacks take place in churches, farms, villages. Watch. Now, in response to footage like this and the massacre of Christians, here's the framing you'll see in the mainstream press. This is from the AP. See if you can spot the hole in the logic here. Quote, while Christians are among those targeted, analysts say the majority of victims of armed groups are Muslims in Nigeria's Muslim-majority north, where most attacks occur. Analysts say Nigeria's complex security dynamics do not meet the legal definition of a genocide. No, well, there's complex dynamics, you see, so we can't call it an anti-Christian genocide. Then there's this analysis from an esteemed professor at NYU, quote, if anything, what we're witnessing is mass killings which are not targeted against a specific group, said Olowumok Ayendel, an assistant professor at New York University's Center for Global Affairs, who specializes in conflict studies. The drumming up of genocide might worsen the situation because everyone is going to be on alert. And you wouldn't want that, apparently. You wouldn't want to put people on alert about the threat that they face. In other words, according to the AP and this professor at NYU, Christians aren't being targeted for extermination by Muslims because both Christians and Muslims are being killed in large numbers by extremist groups. That's the logic. So if a group commits a genocide against another group, but then also kills a bunch of its own people, then it's not a genocide. Because you can cancel out the genocide by just like killing the same number of your own people that you killed of the group that you hate. That's what they're telling us. You know, it's not just Christians who are dying, and therefore Christians aren't being targeted. It's a bit like saying innocent people aren't being targeted by the Joker because the Joker also kills some of his own henchmen when they make him angry. Now, the problem, of course, is that in both cases, the AP is talking about the Muslims are the ones who are doing the killing. Christians are not raiding Muslim farms and mosques and massacring everyone. Christians aren't lining up Muslims and shooting them in the head because they won't convert. Muslims are committing those atrocities against Christians. And yes, they're also killing moderate Muslims. They're killing Muslims they disagree with. And on top of that, they're also killing Christians as part of their explicit goal of religious conquest and worldwide jihad. There's an ISIS affiliate that's active in northeast Nigeria right now called Islamic State West Africa Province, or ISWAP. And they're currently in the process of murdering and enslaving Christian men, women, and children on their way to establishing a new caliphate. They're one of the most powerful ISIS groups anywhere in the world. And that's the part of the story that the AP would rather skip over as they attempt to, both sides this ongoing slaughter. But you can't skip over that part of the story because it's clearly relevant to how the U.S. should respond. Think about the rise of ISIS in Iraq a decade ago. Obama declared that they weren't a big threat, right? Famously called them the JV team. And then just 6 months later, ISIS took over huge swaths of Syria and Iraq and said they were going to start a new caliphate. And it wasn't until Donald Trump took office and dramatically intensified the Pentagon's attacks on ISIS in 2017 that they were finally defeated in both Iraq and Syria. So this is an example of a targeted American military intervention overseas that had a clear, tangible, positive result for Americans by eliminating an organization that was committed to conducting acts of terrorism on our soil while also saving the lives of hundreds of thousands of Christians. And make no mistake about it, keeping Christians alive wherever they may be is clearly in the best interests of the U.S. And to that end, Donald Trump did not wage an endless war in the Middle East. It was a campaign that every reasonable person in the country thought was appropriate and justified. So what Trump is proposing to do now, as he says we're going to carry out a sweet attack in Nigeria, going in guns a-blazing, if it comes to that, is to follow the exact same strategy he used to great effect in his first administration. We have precedent showing that ISIS and other Islamic militant groups can be shut down, and very quickly. So why are Democrats opposing Trump's apparent plan to attack Islamic terrorists in Nigeria? Well, one reason, of course, is that Democrats are not bothered by the persecution of Christians. Actually, they welcome it. After all, they persecute Christians within the borders of this country. Why would they care about Christians who are being slaughtered 5,000 miles away? But there's also something to be said for how Nigeria, in the eyes of Democrats, is a big success story for democracy. And they're willing to cling to this mythology at all costs, no matter how many Christians need to die as a result. Every other month, the Biden administration will put out statements about how Nigeria is Africa's largest democracy. You can go on the archived version of the White House website and you'll find about a dozen, of these declarations. And Nigeria's president at the time returned the favor. He was one of the first world leaders to declare that Joe Biden had won the 2020 election. Quote, "Congratulations to U.S. President-elect Joe Biden on his election at a time of uncertainty and feared world affairs. His election is a reminder that democracy is the best form of government because it offers the people the opportunity to change their government by peaceful means." So the messaging is pretty clear from both sides. Democracy, as we all remember, was the Democrats' top buzzword for the past few years. They couldn't stop throwing the word around. They said the United States is a democracy. They said Nigeria is a democracy. They said your local dentist office is a democracy. Everything's a democracy. And in every single case, Democrats were using the word democracy to describe some of the most undemocratic practices imaginable. Now, of course, in this country, they went on about the importance of democracy as they attempted to imprison and murder the leading presidential candidate, along with everyone who ever worked for him. In Nigeria, they pontificated about democracy even as the state lost its monopoly on the use of force and as Islamist terrorist groups seized control of large portions of the country. But, Nigeria is not really a democracy. It's a failed state where Christians are being hunted en masse. And you have to ask yourself, if the entire corporate media and the Democrat Party are willing to lie to you about what's happening in Nigeria, why wouldn't they excuse the same type of massacre in this country? I mean, it'd be one thing if they tried to claim that foreign entanglements are inherently risky or that we don't want to risk the lives of U.S. service members. I mean, those are reasonable arguments. You can make those arguments. Or if they claim that we could solve all of Nigeria's problems, all of their multidimensional poverty by sending them a little bit more money, which is not a reasonable argument, but, they could also try to claim that. But they're not really doing that. They're telling you that Christians aren't actually being gunned down, even though it's happening on camera. Whatever Donald Trump chooses to do in Nigeria, Christians in this country and all over the world should never forget that. The people who want you dead aren't just in Boko Haram or ISWAP or ISIS. They're not 5,000 miles away. They're trying to return to power. They're running in several major elections today, in fact. And if that sounds like an overstatement, well, ask yourself, how are Christians treated in Somalia? It's one of the most dangerous countries in the world for Christians. They are murdered and beheaded for their faith all the time. Last Good Friday, Islamist militants shot 6 Christians in the shop where they worked and then torched the shop. What do you think happens when major cities in this country become indistinguishable from Somalia? What happens to the Christians in those cities? Well, if they win today's elections with the help of millions of imported foreign voters, in Democrats' eyes, it'll be a major victory for democracy. But what they won't tell you is that their ideal version of democracy is not anything that Ben Franklin or Thomas Jefferson had in mind. It is Nigeria and Somalia's definition of democracy. And one election in New York or Minneapolis at a time, we're on our way to getting just that. Now let's get to our 5 headlines. If you wanted to take down America, you would start exactly where the left did, the family, and specifically our kids. And that's why all our entertainment, education, and media target kids so aggressively, planting lies about gender identity, God, and our American values. If we don't equip them with truth from a young age, we shouldn't be surprised when they grow up believing lies. And that's why I'm such a big believer in Brave Books. They're helping families teach timeless values through engaging stories that kids actually love. Each month, you get a new book that reinforces a pro-God, pro-America value like courage, honesty, love of country. Each one has conversation starters and games to bring the whole family together. And with their new streaming platform, Brave Plus, you'll have a whole library of wholesome, trusted shows and movies vetted by real parents, and it's included free with your subscription. Go to bravebooks.com/Walsh and use code Walsh for 20% off your first order when you join the Brave Book Club. That's bravebooks.com/Walsh, code Walsh. We all know costs have been all over the place: groceries, gas, subscriptions, you name it. So it's no surprise that we tend to assume everything is more expensive than it actually is. Case in point, 72% of Americans overestimate what life insurance actually costs. Turns out it might be more affordable than you think. Policy Genius makes finding and buying life insurance fast, easy, and surprisingly affordable. So if something happens to you, your loved ones have a financial safety net. With Policy Genius, real users have gotten 20-year, $2 million policies for just $53 a month. Looking for life insurance can feel overwhelming, but Policy Genius makes it surprisingly straightforward. They let you compare quotes from top insurers in just a few clicks, so you can find coverage that actually fits your needs and budget. What really sets them apart is their team of licensed agents who walk you through everything, step-by-step answering questions, handling the paperwork, and advocating for you throughout the process. They lay out all your options clearly, with coverage amounts, prices, and terms right in front of you. No guesswork, just clarity. And since life insurance is such an important part of financial planning, it helps that Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace with thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from people who found exactly what they needed. As a father and husband, I know how important life insurance is, and the peace of mind that comes with knowing that your family will be financially protected and able to maintain their quality of life, even if you're no longer there to provide for them. So, secure your family's future with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/Walsh to compare life insurance quotes from top companies and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/Walsh. So we've been talking about food stamps quite a lot on the show recently. And as you know, I've been a critic of the food stamp program for a very long time. And over these past few weeks, for the first time, it seems like Americans en masse are ready to have this conversation about these welfare programs. So, I'm taking full advantage. I admit that. Take advantage of the moment. I've been waiting for this moment for like 10 years, and now it's arrived. So on that note, I wanted to play this clip, and we played a lot of clips that kind of prove the point about EBT. I mean, really, you could play any clip, and this is what we've seen. Just play any clip. Play any clip featuring any EBT recipient doing anything or saying anything, and it kind of makes the point about why this program shouldn't exist. But this one is great because it really makes the entire case against EBT in 47 seconds. The whole case is here. Less than a minute, and it exposes the whole thing, unintentionally, of course, as always, but listen to this.
The first thing I did was grab my phone and call, and when I heard $0, my chest went into my throat.
Maggie Aragon has been a SNAP recipient for more than 3 decades. Even with these benefits, she says she also relies on food banks to get enough food.
I have depended on those benefits since the 1990s, and it's detrimental to my life if I don't get them.
There are more than 460,000 New Mexicans using SNAP benefits. Tonight, some of them telling us they don't have those right now. Friday, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham announced $30 million in state funds would be used to supply SNAP users starting November 1st.
We're going to choose feeding families over politics in New Mexico. We're going to do that right now.
So this is a woman with a heavy accent who's been a SNAP recipient for 30 years, 3 decades on the dole as a SNAP recipient, 3 decades eating on our dime. And she also goes to food banks on top of it. So she's been living off of the taxpayers since I was in 4th grade. Okay, I have been paying for this woman's meals since the very first moment that I had a job. My first job was working at a snowball stand when I was like 13 years old. And I was paying for this woman to eat all the way back then. Now I'm almost 40 and I'm still paying. And so are you. You have been paying for her for your entire adult life, depending on how old you are. Chances are you've been paying for her for your entire adult life. And why? What do we get out of it? What's in it for us? Well, nothing, of course, but it's a nice thing to do for her. I mean, that really is the answer. It's a nice thing to do for her. Okay, well, it would be a nice thing if everybody bought me a car. It would be a nice thing for you if we all pitched in and bought you a new wardrobe with, designer clothes. There are a lot of nice things we could do for people. What makes her special? That's seriously, what makes her special? Why should she get to kick back, relax, and eat for free for her entire adult life? I mean, this woman looks to be probably in her 50s, I would guess, so 30 years. That means for her entire adult life, she has been on the dole. She's never had to feed herself. Ever. Not once has she. This woman has not paid for her own meal ever in her life. Think about that. And this is the way these programs are designed. They do not have the effect of giving people a step up, of propelling them on to becoming productive citizens. They aren't designed to do that. They are designed to keep you dependent and make you dependent, to keep you there in a state of dependence until you die. That's what the programs are designed to do, and it's what they, in fact, succeed in doing. Now, you might speculate that, and I saw some of the comments under this video, people saying, well, maybe she's disabled, and that's why she's been on the dole for 30 years. Well, the problem is that, first of all, she's, standing there, having a conversation, speaking in a relatively coherent way, even if it's a thick accent. So there's nothing obvious in that video that would seem to disqualify her from having any kind of job, especially these days. Using that as an excuse, especially these days, like half of the jobs are work from home anyway. Pretty soon, that's going to be almost every job. So the idea that she can't work at all for her entire life is hard to swallow. But the other problem is that disabled doesn't mean anything anymore. It's one of the many words in our society that's been so broadly used and misused that it just doesn't mean anything anymore. It used to be that if somebody was disabled, then you knew that they suffered from some very obvious physical impairment that made it impossible for them to live a normal, functional life. Like you can't walk or you can't see. You could still be a functional person if you can't walk, you can't see, but it's like, okay, there's a physical impairment, a physical disability. It's like an ability that you don't have, that you're missing because of this problem that you have physically. But now, of course, anything qualifies as a disability. Depression is a disability, legally, under the law, under the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. Depression can be considered a disability. How does that work? I mean, you can't see depression. You can't diagnose it with a body scan or a brain scan. Anyone can claim to be depressed. And what's more, not working, not being productive, living on food stamps will make you depressed. So someone's disabled, they're depressed, they're on some kind of welfare program. That just makes them more depressed. And so now it's a self-perpetuating thing by design. Again, this is all by design. So I don't know, does this woman have a disability? And if it is a disability, is it a real one or a fake one? Well, we have no idea. It doesn't matter. That's the point. The point is that the system is designed to breed dependency, and a system is what it does, and that's what this system does. That's why I say tear the whole thing down. I mean, we got to tear the whole welfare state down. Get rid of all of it. Get rid of the whole thing and start over. Now, I'm not saying there should be no safety. I mean, this is why so much of the language that we use to discuss these things, the language is totally out of step with reality. Because you hear people talk about is like welfare programs as a social safety net. It's a safety net. Well, what's a safety net? A safety net is, you're walking across a tightrope and there's a safety net, and then if you fall into the safety net. If you're in the circus, an acrobat, you have a safety net. If you fall into the safety net so that you don't crash onto the ground and become a pancake on the ground. Okay, that makes sense. But you don't live in the safety net. The whole point of the safety net is that you fall into it and you go, wow, I'm glad this thing is here. That was a close one. But then you get out of the safety net. You don't set up camp there. You don't live there. If you just live, if you say, okay, well, I'm going to hang out here in the safety net and go to sleep. Well, it's not a safety net anymore. It's a hammock, right? That's what it becomes. And so these safety nets are now hammocks where people say, oh, this is kind of comfortable. I'll just stay here. I'll take a nap and I'll lounge here, drink some lemonade, watch some TV, and I'm not ever getting out of this safety net. Okay, well, it's not a safety net anymore. Safety net is you fall into it. Okay, good. Glad you were safe. Get out. Social safety net. Okay, you fall in hard times. You lose your job. Something happens to you. Some kind of unforeseen catastrophe, and you're falling. You're in free fall. Everything's falling apart in your life. Safety net is there to catch you so that you're not completely destroyed by it. That's good. Okay, it caught you. Collect yourself. Now get out of the net. Okay, get out. And that's the part that we've lost. So we should just cut the whole thing down. I mean, really just cut the safety net down, and we need to go back to the drawing board on this thing. And then when you put the safety net back up, it's got to be a real safety net. And what that means is, like, for something like food stamps, it shouldn't even be food. Like, forget about food stamps, forget about EBT cards. It should be, if you're on this program, we will send you, we'll send you military rations. We'll send you MREs, enough that you're not going to starve, enough to fill your nutritional needs for a certain amount of time. And then after that time is up, we're going to take it away. And if you still need it because you haven't gotten back on your feet, you can reapply. But the point is, it's like, it's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be the kind of thing where you want to hang out there, because that's what the system allegedly initially was designed to do. Okay, Michelle Obama has really been vocal lately. She's all over the place. She's, has her podcast where she sits down and complains. She does interviews where she complains. She complains in every forum available, in every way, in every language. She complains in nonverbal language. She complains in Morse code. She complains in sign language. So she complains in every way that she can. She's a very versatile complainer. She's like a Renaissance man of complaining. She just knows how to complain She could complain about anything. It is kind of like a talent in a certain way. So now she's back at it. She's doing an interview here, and we're going to play the clip. But by the way, she's on the interview circuit to talk about her new book. She's got a book out. And I saw this clip this morning, and that's how I found out that she has a book out. I hadn't heard about it. And if you haven't heard about it, and I promise I'm not making this up, okay? I'm not making it up. So she's got a new book, and it's called The Look. So if you go to Amazon, which I did, and of course purchased a copy for myself and all my whole family, purchased 50 copies. Because I read this description and I said, I got to read this. I got to read this thing. I mean, this is like, man. So here's how it was described on Amazon. Beautifully illustrated with more than 200 photographs, including never-before-seen images, The Look is a stunning journey through Michelle Obama's style evolution, in her own words, for the first time. In this celebration of style, from the moment she entered the public eye through her husband's U.S. Senate campaign, through her time as the first black first lady, and today, as one of this country's most influential figures, Michelle Obama shares that she uses the beauty and intrigue of fashion to draw attention to her message. Featuring the voices of Meredith Coupe, Obama's stylist, as well as her makeup artist Carl Ray, hairstylist Yeen Dam Tu, Johnny Wright, and Najeri Radway, and many of the designers who have dressed Obama for notable events. The Look brings readers behind the scenes, not only to reveal how her most memorable looks came together, but also to tell a powerful story about how we present ourselves. Okay, so this is a book Michelle Obama published with 200 pictures of Michelle Obama, where she talks about her fashion and all the profound reasons behind the different outfits that she wore. This is what this woman's narcissism has led to. This is what it has wrought. This is where she is now. She's published Look at Me, the book. A book where every single page is just her begging you to look at her. I mean, the title of the book is Look. That's the title. Look, everyone, look at me. Hey, everyone, look at me. Did you see this? Now look at this. Look at me here. Why aren't you looking? Look some more. Please why aren't you looking at me? Why aren't more people looking at me right now? That should be the title of the book. Why aren't more people looking at me? The story of Michelle Obama. And it really is just pictures of herself. She basically went into her camera roll on her phone of all of her selfies and published them as a book. She looked at her selfies on her phone and said, this should be a book. She went through her selfie camera roll, and it's just nothing but 10,000 pictures of herself. And she said, this should really be a book. I think this should be a book. This is the perfect fodder for a book. And each picture has a caption where she waxes poetic about the reasons for wearing whatever she has on. Right? Like it's a picture of her, and then it's, here I'm wearing a green dress because this is to signify my profound love of nature, or whatever, stuff like that. Here I'm wearing a jockstrap because I'm a man. That's also in there. I think. I don't know. I heard that was in there. So here's an actual headline about this book. This is a headline published. This is in a mainstream publication. Here's the headline, just so you know. Michelle Obama reveals the surprising reason she got bangs in the White House. Wow, thank God. Finally, the mystery is solved. Because I've been wondering this for years. Right? She finally revealed why she had bangs. And every morning and every night, I have gone to bed and I wake up tortured by this question. Why did Michelle Obama have bangs in the White House? Why? Why the bangs? I've said it so many times. You can ask my wife. Every day I'm asking, why did she have bangs? Why did she have them? I pursued this question all over the globe. I've waded through jungles and wandered across deserts. I went to the top of a mountain in the Himalayas and consulted like a Hindu oracle. And I said, Guru, why did Michelle Obama have bangs? Why did she have them? And then the guru said, oh, well, you got to go to Amazon.com. She just published a book about it. Bestseller. Why are you here? Just go online and order it. And so I did. So anyway, why were we talking about this? Oh, but if you're wondering, so here's the answer, by the way, if you're wondering. It's in the article. It says that she wrote, I changed styles to give my hair a rest and to minimize breakage, which is why I switched to bangs 3 years later. So that's it, to minimize breakage. Now that's why. After all these years that we've all been wondering, it was breakage all along. That was the reason. Scholars have been debating this for years. And it turns out, it's because of the breakage. So, and that's the whole book. You can go buy that book. So all that to say, Michelle has been on the interview circuit. And here's the latest. Watch this.
You said we were all too aware that as a first black couple, we couldn't afford any missteps.
Yeah.
And you also say, as a black woman, I was under a particularly white hot glare. Did you feel that?
For sure. You can't afford to get anything wrong because you didn't get at least until the country came to know us, we didn't get the grace that I think some other families have gotten.
Yes, famously, the White House was a place where nobody was scrutinized. Famously, American voters extend grace to their politicians and presidents. Nobody scrutinized the president and his family until we had black ones in there, and then everyone suddenly was scrutinizing them. Then there was a white hot glare all of a sudden. So it really is amazing. We've talked about this plenty of times before, but it never ceases to amaze me that Michelle Obama has lived one of the most enviable lives that anyone has ever lived. Truly. Okay, just based on objective metrics, if you were to take all 100 billion people who have ever lived on the planet and, group them all together and then rank them from most difficult life to least difficult, Michelle Obama would be, most difficult is like all the way over here. If this is least difficult, she's she's in the 0.000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000 I mean, you can make an argument that she has maybe lived the least difficult life of anyone ever. She's in the conversation. I mean, she is. It's to be a first lady in modern America is about as easy and comfortable and luxurious and enviable as a life can possibly be. And that's first lady. Now, I'm not saying that to be the president. To be the president, at least while you're doing the job, is actually one of the more difficult lots that you can. It's one of the more difficult ones that straws you can pull. Which is why I would never want the job. But the first lady, you don't have to do anything. A first lady is they give you some little project to work on. Every first lady has a little project. They give her a little project. And they say, the next 4 years will be about this. And so for what was Michelle Obama, it was, what was it? Let's move or whatever, making sure kids have more recess, making sure that they get enough apples and baby carrots in their school lunches. That was her little project. It's like this really low stakes, very easy. You don't have to actually do anything. It's like you're not really, because you have no power. So this is just the thing that you're going to pretend to do. It's your fun little project. And other than that, your job is to dress nice and appear in public sometimes. And your husband has all the pressure. You have none of it. And your husband it's a lot of pressure. He's the president of the United States. But you have none of it. And he has all of it. So, about as easy as life can be, really. Yet Michelle still complains and still is not happy. And there is a lesson in that. I think that's why Michelle's story resonates, I think, with so many of us. In all the wrong ways. Like, it resonates exactly the opposite way that she wants it to resonate. But it resonates because there's a lesson. It's not a political lesson. It's really got nothing to do with politics. It's a life lesson. It's a lesson about being a person. And what it tells us is that if you are a selfish person, if you're a narcissistic person, being a narcissist it's a curse, really, because you'll never be happy. Nothing can ever make you happy. Truly. Right? If you're a narcissist, it just means, like, if you're a narcissistic person, you will never, ever be happy. Ever. Nothing can ever make you happy until you get over your narcissism. Now, you can, if you conquer that beast, if you slay that dragon, then you can be happy. But as long as you're a narcissist, nothing will ever make you happy. I mean, Michelle Obama could find a lamp and rub the lamp and a genie pops out and grants her, a wish to live until she's 500 and be a trillionaire and give her the power to fly, and she can eat as much chocolate as she wants and never gets fat. They could grant her a wish to become a real woman. Allegedly, I'm not supposed to, but anyway, and she still would not be happy. Like, nothing would ever make her happy. In fact, if you're a narcissist, you could get all that and you would be just as unhappy with all of that as you would be if you were poor and dying of cancer. The amount of unhappiness would be the same. Because that's what narcissism does. It's just this. It's this very small life. It makes you a very small, shallow, superficial person, and that's Michelle Obama. It really is amazing. It's amazing to watch. So, and you can learn more about it by buying her new book, which I'm sure is a page turner. Do you guys ever read protein bar labels and feel like you're reading off a candy bar? Most protein bars are loaded with sugar and processed junk that leaves you bloated and unsatisfied. My team was hunting for something better, a clean protein bar that actually keeps us energized. Now enter Equip Foods Prime Bar, the first grass-fed beef protein bar made with only real food ingredients and absolutely nothing to hide. Starting today, my listeners will receive an exclusive discount on Prime Bar, which has become our team's favorite protein bar on the market with 20 grams of protein in every bar. I've tried a lot of protein bars on the market, and none of them taste like real food. They taste artificial and strange, but Prime Bar actually tastes like real food, and it's good. With just 11 clean ingredients, including collagen, beef tallow, and colostrum, naturally sweetened with dates and honey, you get 20 grams of clean protein without the bloat. No whey, no seed oils, gluten, or artificial junk. They're third-party tested for heavy metals, microplastics, and pesticide, so they can actually back up their cleanest bar on the market claim. If you want to try the cleanest protein bar on the market, it already sold out once, go to equipfoods.com/Matt Walsh and use code Matt Walsh at checkout to get 25% off one-time purchases or 40% off your first subscription order for a limited time. That's equipfoods.com/Matt Walsh. Use code Matt Walsh at checkout. We have less than 2,000 Daily Wire lifetime memberships remaining. Turns out having all access benefits for life with no renewals is something everybody wants. So here are your options. You could buy one while they're still available, or you could win mine. That's right. I have my very own lifetime membership to give away, and I made it ridiculously easy to enter. Download the free Daily Wire Plus app in the App Store, open it, and tap follow under my picture, and that's it. You're entered, and who knows? I could be calling you to give you my personal lifetime membership. But before any of that happens, you need to download the Daily Wire Plus app and follow me inside so that you are entered to win. Do it now. Now let's get to our daily cancellation. Well, it's been a very difficult few days for Canadians, which admittedly is really saying something. It's a bit like saying that you had a rough afternoon when you're a prisoner in a Siberian work camp. But alas, even by the standards of day-to-day life up north, this has not been an easy week. And that's not just because the Toronto Blue Jays lost the World Series in a very painful fashion in Game 7 after making a series of preventable mistakes, including sliding feet first into a force out at home plate and after taking the smallest lead from third base that's ever been taken in the history of the sport. Really, every single aspect of the World Series, from the pregame performances to the postgame arrangements, just a complete debacle for Canadians. And to give you an idea of how bad things got, one vaguely, potentially non-binary performer even changed the words of "Oh Canada," the already terrible Canadian anthem. I mean, frankly, it's pretty bad, just being honest, but changed it to "Our home on native land" instead of "Our home and native land." Listen.
Oh, Canada, our home on native land, true patriot love.
Now, one way to understand Canada is that the entire country, including the private sector, including what's left of their entertainment industry, now functions like a dysfunctional, bloated government bureaucracy. Nothing ever gets updated. Everything's stale and rehashed no matter where you look. Even at the World Series, you can't escape it. And that's why their singers are still doing land acknowledgments in 2025, long after the rest of the world has realized that they make no sense whatsoever. Singing "Our home on native land" is not stunning and brave, unless you're willing to hand the deed to your home over to some drunk tribal elder. And something tells me that this singer is not willing to do that, so it falls flat. But even after the Canadians lost Game 7, the humiliation continued, because it never ends in Canada. For one final indignity, all of the dejected fans leaving the stadium were told that the public transit had shut down for the night, so they had no way of getting home. As for the single biggest public event in the history of Toronto, the city bureaucracy couldn't keep the trains running for another couple hours. And predictably, the Canadian fans melted down over it. Watch.
12:30 for cutoff for the 1 o'clock train. Don't people think 1 o'clock is the last one. It's not 1 o'clock. And that's the last one. That's... I call you... They said I was open 24 hours. You guys are full of shit. It's open 24 to the open. You ain't up.
There's thousands of people here. They told us there's more trains coming. We lined up for 20 minutes. We stood there. Call Doug. Call Doug. Danger. You're putting us in danger. You have people lined up here. You have people waiting still.
Now, the reason I'm beginning with these clips is not simply to mock Canada. I mean, that's 99% of it, admittedly. But I'm also trying to make a larger point, which is that Canada has really started to break down at a fundamental level over the past few years. You know, they can't host a World Series. They can't allow truckers to peacefully protest in Ottawa. They can't provide health care in a timely fashion, unless you want to get a lethal injection, in which case you'll get health care right away. They also can't provide competent police services either, as this video demonstrates. Watch as a Toronto police officer leaves his SUV in park, allowing it to hit everyone before hopping in the car, putting it in drive, and then promptly hitting everybody one more time. Well, dysfunction of this magnitude has many, many causes. Everybody knows that. But this dysfunction is only tolerated in Canada at such a profound degree in every aspect of daily life because they have no meaningful national identity. I mean, there is no national pride in Canada outside of some places like Alberta, where a handful of people always leave comments on my show, which I appreciate. It goes without saying that all of the scorn I heap on Canada is, if you watch the show and you're a fan, you're an exception. This doesn't include you. Present company excluded. But on a national level, mediocrity is the norm. It's expected. That's because Canada has ceded its national identity to foreigners, most of whom see Canada as a resource to exploit. And now Canada itself is unrecognizable. So here's the latest example of this transformation. This comes from a columnist with Canada's National Post named Janie Sorkanak. Quote, in Calgary, 31% of public school students are English learners, because immigration has been so extremely high. The board is now proposing to hire interpreters for regular classrooms. This somehow became normal without anyone raising it with the feds. So this is not conjecture. It's not an estimation. She's quoting directly from the Calgary Board of Education, which published this document. You can see the document there. 1/3 of Canadian public school students are learning English as an additional language. So they're ESL, in other words. Meanwhile, over the past 4 years, the number of students with special needs has grown by 3,400, or roughly 15%. No explanation from the school board as to why that's happening. Also, this is a trend we see across Canada, across America, and it's just a fact of life. Apparently, no one's trying to figure out what's going on there. Predictably enough, the Calgary School Board seems to be interested in just one thing, which is begging for more money. So here's the slide where they demand taxpayer money to hire interpreters. Quote, the additional funding would be directed to targeted schools for classroom-based support, education assistants, interpreters, specialized technologies. Now, the reason Canada is attracting so many foreigners who can't speak English, although it probably doesn't need to be said, is that their government is promising free stuff to everybody who enters the country. As the National Post reporter pointed out, Canada doesn't simply rubber stamp asylum claims for the entire third world. They also allow pretty much any foreigner living in Canada, including international students and temporary residents, to enroll their children in free school. Quote, Canada lets temporary residents bring their kids to the country, and those kids are eligible for public education, as are asylum seekers. This is not lost on immigration vloggers who advertise free school to inquiring migrants. Now, just to double check that she wasn't misunderstanding any of this, Jamie called her local school board, and they confirmed to her that, quote, children of people here on temporary residency permits are handled the same as citizen students, tuition-wise, as long as the parent's permit is valid. So in one sentence, that's a pretty useful way to summarize most of Canada's problems. They don't treat foreigners any differently than Canadians as a matter of principle. Never mind the fact that these particular foreigners haven't paid into the public education system in Canada. Never mind the fact that some of these particular foreigners will go back to their home countries after completing their free education in Canada. And most of all, never mind the fact that the quality of education for all Canadians is suffering in very observable ways from the enormous influx of foreign students into every major school district. Although admittedly, it's hard to imagine the quality of Canada's education system getting worse than it already is. The province of Ontario has just decided that instead of studying the classics in English class, 11th grade students will now be subjected to a full year of so-called Indigenous literature, which is it's almost a contradiction in terms, really, Indigenous literature. So a lot of these Indigenous groups didn't even have a written language before, Europeans showed up, but that's a separate conversation. Of course, most Canadians in positions of power, don't care about the fact that, again, Indigenous literature is non-existent. It's just like they don't care about keeping the trains running on time after the World Series or, singing the right words to their own national anthem. As much as I don't like to use the word weaponized, Canada has most certainly weaponized the concept of apathy. Industrial-grade apathy defines their leadership. It defines their culture and their educational system. By the time Canada finally collapses for good, there's a good chance that nobody in the country will even care. But we should care down here in the United States. It's a big problem for us that our neighbor to the north has become a third world country through importation. The simple fact that we share a border means that we are going to inherit many of Canada's problems by osmosis. Now, at the same time, on the bright side, we're also going to continue to attract many of Canada's brightest thinkers and their highest performers. There's a reason Canadians haven't won a Stanley Cup since the early 1990s. Most of the real talent heads south. And if we want to keep it that way, and we should, then we should pay close attention to what's happening in Toronto and Calgary. And we should vow to never let that kind of dysfunction and disinterest ever take hold here at home. And that is why Canada, the whole country, is today, once again, canceled. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. Godspeed.
Dick Cheney dies, Nancy Pelosi retires, and Democrats pin their Election Day hopes on communists, Muslims, and psychos. Check it out on The Michael Knowles Show.